there is a peak that receives the rays of the sun, Aditya Sankasham, where Agastya sits. So Agastya Maharishi sits there. When Agastya is there, there is knowledge. How do we associate with the culture of this bhumi? See, it's a very tricky thing. In the Uttarakanda, it is said that Hanuman was born to Anjana Devi, to Kesari, and in a cave, and then he was tutored under Surya. That is when there is a word called Vyakarana. There is no mention of Navavyakarana. 9, we generally say is a Navavyakarana Pandita, right? There is no mention of Nava there. There is a mention of Vyakarana. To which the commentator asks, what Vyakarana? Because it could have not been Paniniya Vyakarana. Panini just had come 2500 years back. So he says, Aindram. This is the name of the grammar which is mentioned. So Aindram is the Vyakarana that Hanuman has mastered under Surya. How is that connected to this land? Immediately somebody will take a portion. Tamil Bhumiyil Parpaniyattai Tinithu Vittar ivar. Yen Samskridathil dhaan kura venduma, Tamilil kura kudada. But I am very hopeful that they get the pronunciation of Tamil right. So Tamil kura kudada. This is where Tolkapiyam says, see, we believe that Agastya crossed the mountain ranges of Vindhya. Agastya, Aga. He has crossed the mountain ranges and then he came from Maharashtra to Tamil Nadu and was going between this geography. He is said to have had a disciple, a Sishya called Tolkapiyan. Tolkapiyan, the student of Agastya, was the one who used to note the minutes of the meeting in the literary summits of Pandya Desha. Because before Madurai, the erstwhile capital of the Pandyas was called Kavatam. In our Tamil Grantham, we call it as Kapatapuri. And in the Ramayana, Sugriva says, go search for Sita in the Kavata of Pandyas. Pandyanam Kavatam, he says. Then he also says that this city has been guarded by the snakes. That is why in Tamil we call it Alavai. Madurai, Alavai means where the mouth of the snake touches its tail. So it's called Bhogavati. That time he says, Pandyanam Kavatam. So this Agastya used to attend to those Sangam literary summits, like literary festival. We used to have literary festivals in the Madurai region. And Agastya was a part and parcel of it. He used to lead it. The minutes of that meeting used to be noted down by his student called Tolkapiyan. And Tolkapiyan came up with a work called Tolkapiyam. In Tolkapiyam, it is said, Aindiram Arinda Tolkapiyan, the one who knew Aindram. So Hanuman knew the Sanskrit Vyakarana called Aindram. The one who wrote the Tamil work knew the Sanskrit Vyakarana called Aindram. So Agastya, Tolkapiyan and Hanuman are interconnected. That Agastya was the leader of the literary fest. He wanted to shift it from Madurai to the Western Ghats, and then came the Western Ghats Literary Festival. Right? So that said, the opening verse of this talk was the first verse in the compendium of 1034 verses, which is the quintessence of the Bhagavata Purana called Narayaniyam. Barely 2 hours from here, or 2.5 hours from here, is a beautiful kshetra of Krishna called as Sri Guruvayur. Guruvayur lies in the Western Sea. So Krishna stands there as the personification of unadulterated and blemishless beauty. When Krishna stands in the Western Sea as such a piece of beauty, one Tamil poet wrote, Arabic kadaloram oru alagai kandene. He is alagu, right? So he is by the Arabian Sea. So this is the opening verse where Bhattathiri, the prolific writer, speaker, and of course a grammarian of the Kerala land, Sangamagrama school says, Purusharthatmakam Brahma Tattvam. I understand Purushartha through this Bhagavan. So Purushartha is extremely important in Sanatana Dharma, And that is the eternal echo of our scriptures. If you go through our scriptures, if you go through Srimad Ramayanam, Sri Mahabharatam and the Puranas, one thing that you will see is Purushartha, the ultimate goal of a human life. Of course, they are 4 in number. Anything in Sanatana Dharma has to be multiple. So you have 4. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Aram, Porul, Inbam, Veedu. Thiruvalluvar in Tirukkural beautifully exemplifies this by distributing all his kurals, his couplets in 3 categories. Arathupal, Porutpal, Kamathupal. Dharma, Artha, Kama. Dharmam is extremely a nuanced subject. It seems as if it is very approachable, very meaningful, very understandable, but it is very nuanced. That is why in the 124 questions posed by Yaksha to Yudhishthira to drink 100 ml of water. See, this man was thirsty. So he ordained his younger brother to go fetch water. It was such a simple human Homo sapien process. The brother went, he didn't return. So did the other brothers. Finally, leaving Draupadi alone, Yudhishthira goes to see 4 bodies lying on the ground. He knew something went wrong. He goes, takes the water for himself. That is when an ethereal voice says that you will have to answer questions to drink this water. And it is not 1 or 2, it is 124 questions. To drink 100 ml of water, I would have rather died thirsty. So, this man answers 124 questions. In that there is a question, what is dharma? That is where he says, Tarko apratishtaha shutayo vibhinnaha. There he says, Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya mahajano yena gatassa panthaha. He says, Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. It is very, very tough to actually ascertain this is dharma. Because it depends on the way you interpret. You have such great advocates like MRV here. It's all about interpretation, right? How do you interpret? So how do we interpret? Certain areas are very clear. You have the Matra Dharma of advising the son right. Sumitra does that. Ramam Dasharatham Vidhi, Mam Vidhi Janakatmajam, Ayodhya Matavim Vidhi, Gachatata Yatha Sukham. The boy comes and asks, Mother, my older brother Rama has been asked to go to the forest for 14 years. I thought it is my duty to go and serve him. What is your opinion on this? Sumitra says, you have committed a grave mistake. Lakshmana said, what mistake have I committed, mother? You should have left by now. Ramam Dasharatham Vidhi Mam Vidhi Janakatmajam. He is your father. You're no more D Lakshmana. You are R Lakshmana. From now on, you're Rama's son. Sita is your mother. Where you go and where you live shall be Ayodhya to you. Gachatata yathasukam. My dear son, I advise you go. Pinnum pagarval magane ivan pinchal tambi ennum padiyendru adiyarin yeval seidi mannum nagarke avan vandidilva andrel munnam mudiyana palmulai soranindral, says Kamban. They left. So she followed the dharma of a mother advising the son. I'm sure we have to contrast this with something, right? In 1990s also, while I was growing up as a student, we used to have a lot of power cuts. My family members were the most selfless people on earth. When the power would go off, they would surely ask me to check if the power was off in the neighboring house as well. So we were good people from the bottomest of our hearts, however bottom we could get. So she says, you leave. What does Lakshmana do? Lakshmana has the dharma of a sesha, of a person who serves. So he said, I will leave. So it was such a simple process. But now there is, when we read through these dharma aspects, that is why I said it's nuanced. As you read such straightforward, very neat dharma aspects, there will be some nuanced portions. That is where you have this concept called Dharma-sankatam. Generally, we use this word in a different context. Dharma-sankatam is not about choosing dharma over adharma. We use it in that context, that there is adharma, this is dharma. So then there is Dharma-sankatam. Dharma-sankatam is when there are two dharmas and which dharma to choose. See, if you take up Lakshmana, he had a dharma of being the husband to Urmila. That was also his dharma, pati dharma. But he chose the dharma of serving his elder brother over being the dharma of being a husband to Urmila. Because this is a question, an eternal, I don't know whether it's an echo, but at least it's a question. People come and ask, what do you think about Urmila? She recently fought an election in Bombay. So, what do you think about Urmila? You know, see, it's all about the poise and the pauses that you take to make you sound intellectual, right? It's all about, what do you think about Urmila? What do I think about Urmila? Urmila had no worries. See that Lakshmana has left. So she was okay with him following his Sesha Dharma. But there are eternal questions that come in Dharma-sankata itself. For example, when Dasharatha has said, Sumantra, come here, make arrangements for the Yuvaraja Pattabhishekam of Rama. Bharata was not there. Any sensible father would say, send a message to Bharata, let him join us in this joyous occasion. Let him be a part and parcel of Rama's Pattabhishekam. You know what he says? Kintu chittam manushyanam anityam iti me matam. Sumantra, humans are very fickle-minded. So we will do it in the absence of Bharata. Why? Because in the 105th Sarga of Ayodhya Kandam, Rama reveals that Dasharatha had promised Kaikeyi's mother that the son born to Kaikeyi will be the Yuvaraja of Ayodhya. So he has made a promise. That's why he said it's an election manifesto. When you know this will never happen, yet you make a fool. Now Dasharatha has promised, so it has become dharma to follow that. But then now he says, no, the eldest son as per Article 54F and 94B. The oldest son has to become, then why did you make that promise? This is where Dharma-sankatam lies. There is a promise made earlier. There is a dharma as a Raja that he has to do. Which one to follow? That is Dharma-sankatam. Between two dharmas, what you choose. A woman needs to be respected. Manu keeps on telling this. Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tasya devataha. Then why did Rama kill Tataka? Why did he have to humiliate Shurpanaka? All these are questions not asked of the festivals now. It has been asked in the commentaries itself. But there is an answer given. This is where it gets very nuanced. So to see dharma and Dharma-sankata. So, but dharma has to lead you somewhere. Where will it lead? For example, Jatayu. Jatayu was a scavenger. Akshunya yoga pathamagrahyatam Jatayum tiryanchameva bhavatam, says the Acharya Kuresha. So, Jatayu had no qualification to even institute a Brahma Vidya. But he gets, Rama says, I grant you moksham. I grant you moksham. So what made Jatayu get that moksham? So one Purushartha leads you to the other. He followed the dharma of being a true devotee and a person who has truly served Rama, and that gave him the other Purushartha called moksha. Not everybody who did this first Purushartha had the entitlement to get the last Purushartha. Dasharatha was the father of Rama. We never ever say Dasharatha moksham. He must have been reborn somewhere, or he must have got some place where Rambha, Urvashi, Tilotama dance. But we don't call it moksham because it is not essential that one dharma leads you to the, one Purushartha leads you to the other. Whereas in certain cases, it does lead. Now coming to the concept of artha. Because we often see the only Purushartha as moksha and the other three Purusharthas as inferior. Not essentially. In Sanatana Dharma, all four Purusharthas have their place. And it is very important in what limit they are. When in fact Lakshmana goes taking the message of Rama to Sugriva, he says, Sugriva, you were expected to follow Dharma, Artha, Kama. You were supposed to engage in Dharma in the mornings. In the afternoons, you were supposed to be engrossed in methods to accumulate Artha. In the evenings, you were supposed to engage in kama. But all through the day, you are engaged in kama. This is where it goes wrong, he says. So there is, see, when I speak about this morning, afternoon and evening, there is a prahelika in Sanskritam. Pratardyutah prasangena madhyahne stri prasangatah ratrau chaurya prasangena kalo gacchati dhimatam. Intelligent people spend their ways this way. What is that way? Pratardyutah prasangena. In the morning you gamble. Madhyahne stri prasangatah. You speak about women and exclusively about women in the afternoon. Ratrau chaurya prasangena. You speak about theft in the evening. And intelligent people spend their way. But this is a prahelika. It's a riddle. So how do we answer? Pratardyuta prasangena. Read the Mahabharata, of which gambling is an essential part in the morning. Madhyahne stri prasangataha. Speak and read about Ramayana that talks about Sita in the afternoon. Ratrau chaurya prasangena. Navanita chauryam of Krishna and the Dashamaskanda of Bhagavatam is extremely important. Read Bhagavata in the evening. So you have a timetable scheduled for morning, afternoon, evening. Lakshmana says you have dharma, artha, kama, but you have engaged in kama. So it is essential for us to understand that there is not one Purushartha that is the best and the remaining three are inferior. They also need to be followed. So there is a dharma, artha. That is why, kings in the past used to do Rajasuya Yajna. See, Rajasuya Yajna was not meant to realize moksham. It was meant to accumulate wealth in a different way. That is why in the Uttarakanda of Ramayana, when Rama says that I need to do Rajasuya Yajna, Bharata consults. He says, Rama, please don't engage in Rajasuya Yajna because you will end up having many enemies. Rather do an Ashwamedha Yajna. And that is how Ashwamedha comes into picture. So there is a dharma, artha, kama. This is another part, poor that Maharishi called Vatsyayana wrote Kama Sutras. He had a lot of things, such nice things to say. But today when we propagate his Kama Sutra, it is all in a way that we want it to be. But if you read the original book, it has so many nicer, finer aspects of life. So karma is an equally important thing because it's always an assumption. He is a sannyasi, so he will get moksham or he has the ability to grant moksham. We are all grihasthas. We are all wearing a panchakacham of some brand. And so we are not entitled for moksham. Not essentially. In Sanatana Dharma, sannyasi, the meaning of a sannyasi is not only the person who wears kashayam. Samyak nyasaha sannyasaha, the one who surrenders the burden of protecting his jivatma to paramatma. So you can carry a Louis Vuitton, not hide it. You can still carry it and then be a sannyasi. So kama is also an integral part of this Sanatana Dharma. So of this Purushartha. So you have dharma, artha, kama. The most important of all, moksha. How do we understand moksha the way it has been seen? For that we need to go level by level. One. To say that one needs moksham or one is granted moksham, one desires moksham, we need to understand what moksha is and why should one desire. So the presumption made for moksha is that this life is a cyclic process. Now, how do we prove it's cyclic? Because when you step beyond a certain comfort level of audience and speaking, you will be bombarded with questions. How will you prove after life and before life? It's very tough. Then you'll have to say, read Brian Weiss's Many Life, Many Masters, read all that. So, how do we prove? This is where there is a method called Charuvaka Samayam. Charuvak. Charu means people who speak. Vak. Very well. So, the Nastikas of those days were called well-spoken. Nastikas, atheists, were called Charuvaks, well-spoken, because the way they speak will convince you also to be an atheist. See, the way they'll say, I've been telling you for long. It's all about that energy. Because the moment you give name Narayana, that means you're becoming very mundane. You have to call it energy, momentum, velocity, mass. You'll have to be in that level too. Actually gauge this. So first they will try to tell this is an energy. Then beyond that energy they'll say there's no form. All this will come. All this has been tackled by our acharyas in a way. How a child drinks milk from his mother the moment. Because we are trained for everything. But when a little child drinks mother, the first milk from the mother, the child isn't trained. You don't train the child, keep your mouth here, So the child is so used to drinking milk for so many janmas, our acharyas say, that the child doesn't need training. So this is the first proof that their life is cyclic and not linear. So there are various aspects to which Charuvaka Samayam is handled, because I have to speak about how to handle Charuvakas in the state of Tamil Nadu.